We're all familiar with Velcro hook and loop fastenings. They're everywhere, from clothing to cable ties and everything in between. Hook and loop fastenings have become a part of our daily lives. But did you know how one man's canine friend inspired its invention and how it's even found its place amongst the stars? The first and original hook and loop fastener was invented in Switzerland by Swiss electrical engineer George de Mestral.
It all started with a gentleman called George de Mestral. In the 1940s, he was walking with his dog in the Swiss Alps. Many times he found these burrs from the burdock plant in the fur of his dog. But after a while he started to study it and put it under the microscope, and he was fascinated and inspired by this piece of nature. So he invited several scientists and people who knew about manufacturing, and 10 years later, in 1958, he invented the whole thing, was granted a patent, and the VELCRO brand and the VELCRO company was born.
Although these hook and loop fastenings are often referred to as Velcro, Velcro is now actually the name of the company founded by George de Mestral, rather than the name of the product. So, how do these hook and loop fastenings actually work?
How the science works on this is that you have many hooks on a small area, and on the reverse side that it's hooking into, lots and lots of fibrous material that when you push the two parts together, the hooks basically work their way into the material, and as they're released, they find a strand onto which they can hook. Not every hook actually has to hook, but the multiplication of many hooks hooking onto an opposing side will allow the hook and loop fastener system to work very well and actually maintain quite a bit of strength.
A common misconception about Velcro hook and loop fastenings is that they were invented by NASA for use in the Apollo space missions.
NASA didn't invent the hook and loop fastener system. They used it a lot. They were the ones that helped bring it to great popularity in the public image.
It became an easy way of attaching tools to the astronauts and even of attaching themselves to the spacecraft. So, for example, they would have it on the bottom of their shoes so they could stand on the floor of the spacecraft, and even use it to attach themselves into their sleeping compartments.
That popularised the image. It started to become widespread use of product.
Although hook and loop fastenings were never invented for use in space, they've still proved an indispensable addition to the complex technology on board space shuttles and stations. Velcro hook and loop fastenings have a multitude of uses, and the products utilising this technology continue to increase in numbers. Who would have ever thought that a man walking his dog could result in such a useful and versatile invention that is still being produced in growing numbers today? Velcro hook and loop fasteners are manufactured worldwide, including at this facility in Spain.
Since 1958, we are still today the original manufacturer of Velcro hook and loop, and we are still innovating. It started really with textiles, because George de Mestral, he invented this Velcro hook and loop, and people were looking at it and said, hey, this is quite interesting, but what to do with this? So the application started naturally, like I said, in gloves and garments. If you are a small child, your shoes are with Velcro hook and loop, and also your sailing jacket, etc. But the company has evolved far beyond this. We now have applications in a very wide variety of industries and consumer applications, and that's why we love to come to work in this company.
The production of Velcro hook and loop fasteners begins at the warping machine.
Step one is warping. Warping consists in converting the individual ends coming from a bobbin into a bigger spool or reel, which contains as many ends as will be needed in the following process, which is weaving.
This part of the machine is called the creel. It is a framework that is fed with bobbins of yarn that form the beam. Around 800 yards of yarn are fed through in parallel that will form the length of the tape. This is the sectional warping machine. Yarns with a wider gap are fed through here to avoid them mixing together. After this process, adhesive is applied in the slashing machine. The beams made in the warping process are put together to form one in a process called slashing. To begin this process, the yarns are coated in glue. They are then separated and sent through an oven of hot air that dries the glue. The yarn is then passed through the reeds, which are parallel strips of wires in a loom. This separates and maintains every strand. A sensor can detect a break in any one of the hundreds of yarns that will immediately stop all machinery, ensuring a high level of quality control and a reliable hook and loop product. The yarns are then each put together to form the final beam. This huge beam will then go directly to the loom to begin the weaving process. In the weaving process, there are two beams in each loom, one that forms the base of the hook and loop textile and another that forms the loops. Different types of yarns are used to produce both the hook tape and the loop tape. The weaving process consists of two distinct sets of yarns, one called the warp and another called the weft. These are interlaced with each other to form a fabric. The warp is the set of yarns that are first laid out on the loom. The weft yarns are then woven under and over the warp. Once our textile has been woven, it is then moved on to the dyeing stage. The raw textile material is put into this barrel. The barrel is then inserted into the machine in which the colouring process takes place. The process takes around 2 to 3 hours in total.
With the use of water and temperature, these are pressurized machines. It's basically using chemicals and dye stuff, fix the dye stuff onto the fibers of hook and loop, basically getting the final desired color.
Once completed, the barrel is then inserted into a drying machine where the newly coloured material is dried out. This coloured material then moves on to the hook cutting machine. This step is vital and, as the name suggests, creates the hook for the finished Velcro hook and loop tape. Little cuts are made in the material that forms the hooks. Once completed, the tape is cut to its final width.
We have more than 35,000 different products, and they're all designed for a certain application. And this can be light, so very light, or very strong. And this can be very strong. So strong that you can hardly remove it.
And that's it. The Velcro hook and loop tape is complete, ready to provide yards of strong grip to the user. Now that's a wicked invention.